an Emco Compact 5 milling head. You may have noticed in another video of mine that I've acquired an Emco Compact 5 milling head. It will also go on a Compact 8, but I haven't got the lathe. So what I've acquired is an XY table. That it is. It's a solid, very weighty solid steel, probably made in China, generic little thing. And I've taken the base off my pillar drill. And here's the base of the pillar drill. Now, for 60 odd pounds on eBay, you can buy the bracket that fits it to the lathe. Well, that's no use, because even if you've got the bracket, you've still got to mount it onto a base or something. You'd have to find a way of mounting it onto your XY table. And so well, for £60 you buy a complete pillar drill. The only problem is the column on the pillar drill is much larger than this. I think it's 35mm diameter. That. But what I had was the foot of some table, machine or something, just scrap. This is just a bit of scrap, and I picked it up. Now the hole in it was smaller than that, because the tubing it had been used with was smaller than 35mm. It might have been that the hole was about 1 inch. And in order to get the XY table in a position where you're going to get the maximum effect of it underneath the milling head, it's been necessary to take off that edge of this flange. The flange wasn't drilled. This is just a foot to spread the load of this framed up thing. You can imagine what it was. Inch round bar framing with this on as a foot. Anyway, out of the scrap bin, chucked this up in the lathe, just held it round there, and then bored it up. There's a nice hole in it already. Bored it out to 35mm so that it will fit that column. Drilled out 3 holes to match the 3 holes of the old one, and then I can look at how I attach the XY table onto here, and then I've got a base for the mill, which may work. The difficulty is going to be tramming it in, as they say. That is getting it so that the column and the XY table are perpendicular in all directions, so as you move in the X and the Y direction, the distance between the milling cutter and the table remains constant. Well, I've got these 3 bolts, and maybe there's a way to put spacers, but I am going to, my thoughts at the moment are that we'll do the tramming on the actual mounting of the XY table onto this bit. I just bolt this down and get the column in there. Okay, so that's where we are. Milling head on the floor because I haven't got enough bench space. Don't look at my bench. That needs tidying up. So the floor is unused. Well, here is the Emco micro milling machine. I'm calling it micro because that's a mini milling machine, one of these generic Chinese things, useful as a drill. This Emco one came with a set of collet chucks to fit the collet holder, and so should be quite useful with some mini mills if I get them. XY table now bolted down, just about holds onto there, snug up against the column as much as possible, because as you can see, the center line of the milling spindle isn't even in the center of this, so you've not got a huge throat or gap between there and there, which restricts what movement you've got in one direction. However, it's there. Now this needs adjusting, for whatever you call it, parallel or tram, and then the jib strips adjusting on it. It moves very freely now, but that could well be because, well, that moves too freely. The jib strip needs adjusting on this one. The other way isn't too bad. And then we'll see how well it works. But it certainly will be more useful like this than it would attached to a lathe. And that makes a nice little mini or micro milling machine as an addition to the workshop. And instead of having an Emco compact lathe, I've got this Chinese lathe. It's about the same capacity in many ways, apart from the fact that the swing is bigger. So they've raised it by about 2 centimeters, an inch or so. What do they call it? It's not 7x9, is it? Can't remember what they call it for these lathes. Is a generic term for them, but it's a greater capacity than the Emco. Whether it's as higher quality is debatable. You know, it's what you use the tool for. Right, there we go. I'm quite pleased to have got this far.